Awesome, hello and welcome to the Vineyard Chess channel. Today we're going to talk about the Tennison gambit, a continuation of the previous video that I had made before, and in case you didn't check it out, please care to check it out. It will be the link in the description below. And let's get to start. Well, Tennison gambit is more of a refutation of the Scandinavian, which follows knight f3 on move 2, and after d takes e, the knight can go to g5. Some people have also played knights here, but they're different moves, and let's get to the deep dive right now. So after d takes e, knight to g5, bishop to f5, defending the pawn, attacking the pawn twice, defending it twice, and instead of the normal bishop to c4, which attacks the f7 pawn, and play could continue with e6, queen to e2, knight to c6. The principle right now is, instead of having this move in, white would want to immediately attack the pawn on e4 with the queen on e2. And let's get to see some of the prospects that they have in the position. Well, one of them is that the queen gets to be active earlier on in the game than before, because when we see the line with the bishop to c4, the queen is held back in the action, so the other minor pieces are done without the attack. But right now they would want to front it into an attack, so attacking the pawn thrice, so we can't really defend the pawn again. A bad move to play by black is queen to d4. The moment you do this, then you're lost immediately after the move queen to b5 check, attacking the undefended bishop and the undefended pawn on b7. So on saving the bishop, gaining a tempo on the queen takes the pawn, and on attacking the queen again, the bishop is pinned to the king. And we can see that this spin really causes everything down, so the rook is still up for grabs, and this is a lost position for black. So let's go back. So after that, I recommend the move knight to c6, which develops a piece, controls the d4 square and the e5 pawn push. So if they would continue with their same plan, attacking the bishop on f5, we defend it with the queen on d7, and after them winning a pawn, this is a terrible blunder that they would have made in the position, because after the rook comes to b8, then we see that black is positionally better, so the queen has to move, and after evicting the knight goes on the rim, it becomes dim, and immediately right now we can see that black's position is so good. At worst they can double up the pawns on the h file, then they have already an open b file to work with, and the king is surely still in the center for white, much as the same is for black, but we can see that the position is easier to play for the black pieces than white. So play could continue with rook to b6, attacking the queen, queen to c4, trying to hold on to the active position, but after rook to b4, queen to a6, and knight to d4, attacking the c2 pawn. So we see that actually black's position is much preferable than white, and in this position there are very few good moves that white can kick in. The best would be moving the king to defend the pawn, or moving the rook, which loses the pawn, but either way the position is getting so bad for white in this case, so it's practically lost. The advantage is significant enough for the win. So let's continue with the line where we see the queen coming to c4. Well, the queen coming to c4 immediately attacks the f7 pawn, and what best than to push the e6 pawn? Well, play would continue with knight takes e, and instead of capturing back, because the knight is defended twice, we disconnect the pieces with the knight to d4 move. Very thematic as in the previous lines of the Tennison gambit, but now the difference is the queen is held to defend the c2 pawn because it left the outpost on d1. The knight on g5 is stopped from going back to f3, which is a good square for it. So, and right now we see that actually white is in a very terrible recession and they have to make a move. So I looked at one of the good moves being bishop to d3, and play would continue with chasing the queen with b5, and after the queen moves back to c3, queen to d5. And right now actually black is lost, white is lost, beg your pardon, and that is because of the hanging knight on e. So the knight is already attacked thrice, and on exchanging itself with the other with check, we see that the second knight is attacked, and we'll get to see how the f3 square plays a big role in the game. So on the bare minimum, actually white will lose a lot of material. If not, they will just get checkmated in this position, because after the exchange of the bishop, let's start with bishop, with pawn takes bishop, having triple pawns. Well, here the easiest move we can play is surely taking the bishop, but after the knight falls back, it sees the control of the e square, and this check is explosive, as Ben Feingold would say, because white is either getting checkmated or losing the queen. We would see that if white goes there, then they get checkmated from the e2 square, so that's not an option. If they go to the king side, then they still get checkmated because of back rank weaknesses. And the last move, which is blocking with the queen, loses the queen to the fork, to the royal fork, and surely this is game over after that. So that's the best play after taking the bishop. What if they don't take the bishop and you take the knight? This is still winning, but then the chances of winning are becoming more technical than easier. So after the bishop falls back, we evict the queen. When the queen takes the pawn, well, there are not many squares for the queen. The queen also has here, but we shall see that the idea is the same, that at worst you can win an exchange. That's the game. So this is still winning for black. So let's go back. In case they take the pawn, we develop our bishop with tempi, and it's still the same idea that we win the rook because of the fork, and white would be an exchange down with the same amount of material and 3 pawn islands, which is significant trouble for black to surely convert this to a win. And here everything is much better for black. So let's look at some of the blunders which are also done in the Tennison gambit on both sides of the board. So commonly after taking the pawn, knight to g5, knight to f6, defending the pawn and developing, we get to see another gambit of d3. Well, one of the best moves is actually to take. It is still recommended. And the other, which I would prefer you play, is the bishop to g4, attacking the queen. Well, this is a preferable move, and obviously white wouldn't want to play that because you can still capture the pawn, and they're surely doing badly. The opening didn't go in their favor in this variation. But let's see where black tends to blunder. But after the obvious bishop takes, h6, a very normal move, but it is typically losing. It's a terrible mistake in this, because after the move knight takes f7, white is winning, unless otherwise, surely, because if the king takes the knight, because the knight is attacking the queen and the rook, so if the king takes the knight, the bishop check lures the king away from the queen, and thus winning the game. So having two pieces for the queen, which is not sufficient material, seeing that the king is already this badly exposed. So this is a terrible, terrible blunder from black, and let's go back. So if the best way to refute these two is by playing knight to c6, controlling the central squares e5 and d4. And in case they castled and we played the same thing, it doesn't work because the knight defends the queen. So yeah, many have fallen for this trap. We can actually see how many would have fallen for this trap on lichess. Yeah, we can actually see that hundreds, 48 people have done that, and all the 18 people that have played it, 89% of them have won. Okay, it is sad that some have lost in this position, unless it was ultra bullet, surely. But this is already a winning position for black after taking the bishop. Yeah. So those are some of the blunders that happen in the Tennison gambit. Otherwise, sharpen up your chess. Please endeavor subscribe, give a thumbs up for that if you like the video, and like and share.